What's up, YouTube? Coming at you today with a review of the Spyderco H1 Pacific Salt. This is a knife that the highlight is the steel. It uses H1 steel, which is completely rust-proof. From everything that I've read and seen, and now what I've seen for myself, I believe that. A steel that will cut well and hold an edge that won't rust has always been one of those things that was pretty much impossible in the world of knives. You have a give and take of hardness and other things that go into steels, and you have to give and take to get what you want. Well, this compromises with some of those things, but from what I've seen so far, the compromises are worth what you get in return. I recently moved, and this is my new summer EDC, and I got it because I rust so many knives when I sweat all over them. And this knife was used all through the move, 4 or 5 days in a row, just moving stuff, non-stop sweating, never wiping it off, just had it in my shorts, and had sweat all over it. If you follow me on Instagram, I did, even post a couple pics when I'd pull it out of my pocket and the sweat would just be all over the blade. And never cleaned it, never oiled it, and no signs of any kind of rust. The give and take, and one of the unique things about this steel is that it is it's not hardened like traditional steels for knives are. This is a work hardened steel, so it becomes somewhat hard through the grinding process when Spyderco makes it. And then as you sharpen it and as you use it, apparently that hardens the steel as well. And so I'll see how that goes for me, but I've read positive feedback from people that say that is the case. Now, foredge holding initially from the factory, the knife was decently sharp. It wouldn't slice phone book paper, but it was copy paper sharp, and had a pretty toothy edge, but like I say, it would slash phone book paper. It's not that smooth. It has the FNR handles, no washers, but I can flick it with either the middle finger or the thumb with a little wrist added. You can also hold the lock and flip it out, flip it back. But through the move, I did do a lot of cutting with it as far as that initial edge holding, and it is softer initially, is what they say. If I would have been just handed the knife and told that, and not been told that, I wouldn't have noticed. For me, it held up very well through the move. I cut open a lot of boxes. Then when I parked, the parking area had a bunch of vines that I didn't want in the way, so I cut about 20 vines with it. And then I had a big blanket. We were looking for bleach rags to bleach out a lot of stuff, and we couldn't find any rags, so I just cut the blanket up. You know, not super hard use or anything, but with a steel that's supposed to be softer, I thought I would see some damage and rolls and something, but the steel held up very well. The edge was still copy paper sharp. So anyway, finally, I dropped it from about 5 feet on concrete, and picking it up, expecting to find a chip, it was not chipped. It didn't have any chips at all. It had a little bit of edge degradation up in the front portion here. So you would run your fingernail across it and you would feel some microchips, but it didn't have anything visible, and it still cut okay, but it wouldn't cut copy paper anymore. Didn't have a nice clean edge, so of course that got on my nerves, and I threw it on the KME and put an almost perfect mirror edge on there. There are still some scratches when you get up close and have a look, but it's very reflective. And it took a just stupid sharp edge. So I'm very impressed with that. But anyway, before I show the new edge, I want to just talk about the things I do like and don't like about the knife. It's one of those love-hate things for me. This knife, it's not that comfortable. It's very thin in the hand. It's based on the Endura. If you all have an Endura Spyderco, this is almost just like it, with the exception of the little swoop on the blade here to give it a more safe tip for boat handling, being that they're designed to be used a lot around the water. But other than that, it's the same size and everything. It's a 3.8 inch blade, 4-inch handle. And the thumb hole is oversized. Mine came extremely sharp, so I took a sharpening stone and just put it in there with 3 points contact and twisted around. And some people prefer that sharp feel, but I wanted to have a little bit less of that, and I did that on both sides. All of the insides of the FRN were extremely sharp. Same thing, I just took a stone and just put it down inside the groove and ran it through all that. So because the handle's real thin too, and you are pushing into wood or anything harder, it's not very comfortable. Very thin. But the knife, every component of it is designed not to rust. So not only did the blade not rust, none of the hardware will rust. The lock and the screws, I've read different things, and I'm not real sure. Spyderco says they're treated to not rust. I've read that they're H1. The lock is supposedly H1, and that the screws are either titanium or H1 or treated some way to not rust. But nothing on it shows any sign of rust. The pocket clip is titanium, and I have not read what these might be anywhere, but I'd say they might be the H1. Could be titanium. I don't really know. But the handles do have a nice texture to them on the outside. The lock is nice and strong, has a nice spring. Mine does stick up a little bit past the handle scales. Not sure if that's common and maybe it has room to wear in a little bit or what, but it locks up solid. There's no left to right or up and down play, but the FRN does flex. Unlike the Endura, there's no liners on this one. And there's only 2 screws. I think the Enduras now have like 4 or 5 screws, and the Delicas. But so it's just kind of a fugly looking knife too. You know, the FRN handles, the oversized hole, the swoop on the front. It's not the best looking knife, but performance wise it does what it should. I do wish they would do a full flat version. The saber grind hollow grind is nice, it cuts well, no complaints. But I'd like to have a full flat grind version of something like this. And I wish Spyderco and other makers, if they're able to, would do more with H1. Like I say, from what I've seen so far, the edge holding is above average. I was shocked it didn't break or chip when it fell 5 to 6 feet on concrete. And it really doesn't rust. So I was expecting it not to cut as well, not to hold as nice an edge, not to hold an edge long, to maybe be softer, but I haven't found that to be the case, and I've read others saying the same thing, like I say. So also sharpening it. If I would have been given this knife and didn't know that it was any special softer steel, I wouldn't have known that from the sharpening. The stone still took just as long as any other steel to me. I mean, maybe it was easier, but it wasn't perceptible. So I'm going to come around there and just do some cutting with it real quick. I cut some phone book paper there just for myself when I was done, like I always do, to test the edge, and what I found was it just sliced the shit out of the phone book when I just went into it. So not a lot of force there, just going to cut, and Jesus, look at that. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous, but let me come back around now. It is just stupid sharp. Very impressed with the H1. It'll slowly push cut. It'll slice. It's sharp. Just redonkulous. I really like the H1. I hope to see more knives with higher end materials come out with it. I understand the steel's more expensive, so to keep the price down, they went with some more classic designs. But to see like carbon fiber, titanium, you know, other materials that aren't going to rust used on a knife with this H1 steel would be just perfect. Not the perfect paper cutter myself, but the knife does what you want it to. So I am very impressed. It's not my favorite looking knife. It doesn't perform perfectly with the thin handles. You know, I'm not going to sit around and carve wood with it, which is one of the things I do like my EDC blade to be able to do if I'm on a hike and I find a stick and I make a walking stick or whatever. Which I always carry a fixed blade, but I've got a Scandi folder and it's D2, and in the summer it's humid here in West Virginia and I sweat a lot. I need a knife that's not going to rust. I rusted out my cold steel Tough Light, and it was one day. You know, I didn't check it for one day. I didn't oil it and sweat all over it, you know, etc. Went to rinse it off that night and was going to oil it, and sure enough, there was rust all over it. So it's one of those things where I, for 3 months of the year, always carry a cheaper knife. Like in the past, that cold steel was going to be my summer knife this year, and just rusted it out. So, you know, started looking into good EDC knives again and wanted something that was rust proof, and looked at the Benchmade, which the Benchmade H2Os, like they have an actual block Benchmade with H2O title, and it uses XR1 steel or X15 or something, which is similar, but it's heat treated normally, not work hardened. And anyway, the Benchmade, most people complain that the hardware wasn't some sort of special coating, or, you know, the hardware would rust out on them. So Spyderco thought of that. Spyderco went with salt-proof, waterproof everything, which I'm nowhere near the ocean, but like I say, I sweat way too much, and it's very humid in jungle like West Virginia. Thanks for watching.